Hi, it's Hillary. Welcome to my channel where I discuss books, games, and lifestyle. If any of these topics interest you, please like, comment, and subscribe for more of my shenanigans. Today I'm finally making a video specifically dedicated to books. I know, it's been a long time coming. It's the middle of the year and I want to talk briefly about some of the books that have stood out to me. Some good, some not so good. As someone who's watched BookTube since 2014, I love a good tag. And today's video is the mid-year book freakout tag. Please proceed with caution. Best book you've read so far in 2023. Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This book follows June Hayward, an author who feels like she lives in Athena Liu's shadow. The two attended Yale together and debuted in the same year as authors, but Athena's a rising star and June's debut didn't even get a paperback release. When Athena dies in a tragic accident, June does what she sees best and steals Athena's recently finished manuscript and publishes it under her own name. Things unravel from there. I actually read this book twice because I wanted to listen to the audiobook with my husband to get his reactions. And halfway through, he asked me what else could possibly happen because he thought the story was wrapping up. But oh, there was so much more in store. Getting his reactions to how absolutely unhinged the publishing industry is and also book Twitter really made the experience special for me. I have never so actively rooted for the downfall of the main character, but I think that's just because June can't help but play the victim every single time she's criticized, and we all have that type of person in our lives, and it's just not fun. Best sequel you've read so far in 2023. The Bone Shard War by Andrea Stewart is the final book in the Drowning Empire trilogy, and it was one of my most anticipated books of 2023. It picks up 2 years after the events of the Bone Shard Emperor, and I can't say much without spoiling the series, but I was entirely unprepared for the emotions that I felt while reading this book. The trilogy is a multi-POV story set in a world with bone shard magic, which can power animal-like constructs that keep an entire empire in order. These bone shards come from people and ultimately drain their life from them. Yikes. But the Emperor's rule is failing and his daughter wants to prove her worth. We also follow Jovis, a man on the run, Renami and Feilu, an unlikely couple, and Sand, whose memory has been completely wiped away. The story also has an animal companion element, and I think that's why some moments have been so emotional for me. All I know is that I loved the trilogy, and especially the conclusion. New release you haven't read yet, but want to. The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty sounds so good, but I just haven't gotten around to it. This book is the first in a new trilogy that follows pirates and sorcerers, forbidden artifacts, and ancient mysteries, and one woman's quest to seize a final chance at glory. So consider me intrigued. I also need to read S.A. Chakraborty's other books, but that's not the point of this tag. All I know is it sounds really good. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldry. This book is a prequel to Legends and Lattes, and it starts with Viv feeling disappointed that her career with the Rackham's Ravens mercenary company isn't going how she hoped. She ends up at a bookshop and I'm assuming experiences some character growth. But don't worry, adventure is just around the corner for Viv. I adored Legends and Lattes when I read it last year, and it was such a great example of the right book coming into my life at the right time, and I think it has been completely worth all of the hype that it gets online. So if you haven't read Legends and Lattes, I recommend it. Biggest disappointment. Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie. Honestly, I have to say that the entire First Law trilogy disappointed me. I think I rated the first 2 books somewhat highly on Goodreads, but I would like to withdraw those ratings. I should probably do that. doubt I will. I didn't feel connected to any of the characters. Joe Abercrombie has a tendency of overusing certain phrases to an extent that just got on my nerves by the end of the series. And I think my hottest take here is that I didn't love Stephen Pacey's narration style when I listened to the audiobooks. I think maybe I'm not in my grimdark era, or maybe these books are just a tad overrated. Who's to say? Me. I think they're overrated. The ending also frustrated me. I also felt like there was just no point to the series. There's nothing in this that I would recommend. Biggest surprise: Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. Anxious People follows an attempted bank robber who panics during the robbery and runs into an apartment viewing to hide. And it turns into a hostage situation. As things escalate, the 8 strangers open up to one another and tell some of their longest held secrets. The characters range from a wealthy bank director obsessed with visiting open houses for some reason, to a young married couple who couldn't be more different from each other. And there's also an eccentric realtor, a couple who flips apartments and they're trying to save their marriage, and an elderly woman who doesn't seem easily startled. Those aren't all the characters, but they're all quite vivid. This was my second Bachman book, and I didn't really know what to expect. I read Britt Marie Was Here, I think, in 2022. I genuinely did not think that I would laugh so much when I read it. The hostages, terrible at being hostages. The bank robber, worst bank robber ever. This book also does a great job of explaining how some injustices in society can spiral into something terrible, and also how you never know what's going on in other people's lives. So maybe don't be so quick to judge them. However, check the trigger warnings for this one, because it does mention a suicide that happened a few years in the past, and then suicidal ideation. So even though this book was charming and had some heartwarming moments, it still was very serious at times. So just be aware. New favorite author: Emily Henry. I've read her 4 most recent adult releases, and I've loved them so much. I think my favorite's Book Lovers, but it's really hard for me to rank them, so my answer depends on the day that you ask. They're also just the perfect summer read, and I also feel very attached to People We Meet on Vacation because I started reading it on my vacation last month. Emily Henry's just so good at writing characters with depth. I think I would be shocked if anybody hasn't read something by Emily Henry by this point, but I'm so glad that I finally started reading her books. Newest fictional crush. One thing about me is that I don't tend to have many book crushes. I know that's not much of an answer, but I spent a long time thinking about this, and nobody. I can't think of 3 fictional characters from a TV series that I find charming for different reasons. I don't know. I just don't tend to have crushes on fictional characters, and I don't take them very seriously, so this is always a tough one for me. Newest favorite character: Eddie the Cat from the Bookmobile Cat series, and no, I will not elaborate. Book that made you cry. The ending of the Bone Shard War actually did make me tear up some. I don't cry much, usually less than 10 times per year, and when I do, it's normally because something is so sweet that my heart can't take it. These tears were for a more bittersweet moment in the book, and I can't say much without spoiling it, so I'm gonna leave it at that. Book that made you happy. I loved Going Bi-Coastal by Dahlia Adler. In Going Bi-Coastal, Natalia Fox needs to decide her summer plans, whether it means staying in New York with her dad and finding a job outside the university library she usually works at, or visiting her estranged mom in Los Angeles for a marketing internship. And then readers get the chance to see how both summers play out. In New York, she finally talks to her longtime crush, starts a virtual book club with her mom, and discovers a way that she can use her art in her future career. And in LA, she falls for a boy who makes a bad first impression and then mends her relationship with her mom by spending more time together. and then notices how her marketing internship can propel her as an artist. So she kind of just comes to similar conclusions no matter where she goes. The thing I really liked was when you get to the end, readers can choose which love interest they want Natalia to end up with. I won't spoil my choice, but I read both and preferred the ending with the love interest that I felt was slightly more compatible with Natalia. The thing that I loved about this book was that it showed how you can make vastly different choices and still come to the same conclusions about your goals. Sometimes we get so caught up in the idea that people have one soulmate, but I don't think that's true. I think there are plenty of people out there who will support your dreams and ambitions. Plus, good relationships don't fundamentally change your talents and interests. If your partner is a good partner, they will want to support you no matter what. Most beautiful book you bought this year. I chose the new US edition of Solitaire by Alice Oseman. I love the flames around Tori Spring. She's one of my favorite fictional characters. And I seriously hope that Netflix makes a Solitaire spin-off miniseries. I would protect Tori and Charlie Spring with my life. Tori's one of those characters that when I read Solitaire, I was just like, she is me. We are the same person. And then the final question is books you really need to read by the end of the year. One that I picked is Sunland Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. In this book, a man gets separated from his wife on his honeymoon, but it's not so easy because they're at the Tower of Babel, and in order to find his wife, the character has to navigate utter chaos. That's really all I know about it. I recently found books 2 and 3 in the series at Half Price Books, so I bought them, and that is what's prompting me to want to read this soon. I also picked Nimona by N.D. Stevenson. This is a graphic novel about Nimona, a shapeshifter and villain sidekick, which I love villain stories. Like, I need more books from the perspective of villains because they're just so entertaining to me. I don't know why I bought this and didn't immediately read it, but it's high up on my TBR, and I never read the webcomic, and it looks like such a fun afternoon read. Like, it's not gonna take me long, so why haven't I gotten to it? And truthfully, any of the books on my physical and digital TBR are top contenders for this, so I could go on and on about the books I should read by the end of the year, but I won't. Okay, so those were all of the questions. Please let me know in the comments what your answers are. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.